matter experts. Filso Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part, it's absolutely free.
Visit us at filsihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at Filso Hub Research University. Welcome to Filso Hub Research University, your ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices in research ideation, literature review, experimental design, and data analysis to guide you as you carry out your research project. Learn from the Filso Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. Filso Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part, it's absolutely free.
Visit us at filsihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at Filso Hub Research University. Welcome to Filso Hub Research University, your ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices in research ideation, literature review, experimental design, and data analysis to guide you as you carry out your research project. Learn from the Filso Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. Filso Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part, it's absolutely free.
Visit us at filsihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at Filso Hub Research University.
Mabuhay! Welcome to the Filipino Science Hub. Thank you for your continued support to this online platform. To our new participants, thank you for checking us out today, and we would like to officially welcome you to the Filso Hub family. Before we start the webinar, I would like to share some house rules in order to facilitate a smooth session. For our Zoom participants, we would appreciate it if you could turn your audio and video cameras off during the webinar. If you have questions or comments, feel free to type them on our Zoom chat box or YouTube live comments, and we will try to accommodate as much questions as possible. After the talk, we will have a 30-minute Q&A where the Zoom participants will have the opportunity to ask their questions live. For those who would like to receive a certificate of participation, a Google form link will be posted on our Zoom chat box, YouTube live comments, and YouTube video description towards the end of the webinar. Again, welcome to all our Zoom participants and YouTube live viewers. For those who are new and may not be familiar with who we are and what we do, allow me to share our mission and vision in the next few minutes. Filipino Science Hub is an online platform founded by our CEO, Filipino scientist Dr. Jeffrey Camacho back in 2012. Currently, we are a registered nonprofit organization based in Houston, Texas, United States. Our mission is to promote STEM education and the culture of research among students and teachers in the Philippines and abroad. Our current global leadership team is comprised of volunteer Filipino scientists, seasoned STEM educators, and business executives across the globe. Our vision is to see a technology and innovation-driven Philippines, and we believe that this can be achieved by creating a new generation of well-rounded Filipino STEM enthusiasts. The vision is being carried out via our two major programs, the Filso Hub Ed program and the Filso Hub Research University. Through Filso Hub Ed, we are able to empower and support our teachers by strengthening STEM fundamentals education. We believe that this is important because the more equipped our STEM educators are, the more they can inspire students to pursue a career in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The other major program that drives our vision forward is Filso Hub Research University. This is where we provide tools for fundamentals of research and bring practicing scientists closer to the educational sector. Our official website is www.filsohub.com. This is where you can access all our materials such as webinars, tutorials, modules, virtual lab, and features, all of which are free. We are also present in several social media platforms, so follow us wherever you are most active on to get updated with our web events. Again, thank you for being with us this morning. To officially start our webinar, I would like to turn the virtual floor over to our host today.
Ayan, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat, sa mga nasa Pilipinas, and magandang gabi po mula sa amin. I would like to introduce myself. Ako po si Jeffrey Bunkin. I am the founder and current Chief Executive Officer of Filipino Science Hub. So, ang ating pong audience members ngayon ay karamihan ay mga guro. Kami po ay nagpapasalamat sa muli ninyong pagsama sa amin ngayong Sabado ng umaga. So we have more than 100 live participants dialing in through Zoom and YouTube. So kami po ay natutuwa na nakikita pa rin namin po so over the past couple of years of doing this, talagang ang mga grupo natin sa Pilipinas and also like from other parts of the world have kept or have actually fostered their willingness to grow. No, so yung mga lalo na sa kanila sa inyong mga skills sa pagtuturo ng science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so para po sa araw na ito, napaka ganda po ng kumbaga ng topic ng ating webinar for today, and I think this is like an instrument that most teachers lalo-lalo na po sa STEM ay dapat pong matutunan, and that is like what we call action research. So, and specifically sa araw pong ito, let me just share my screen. We are graced by a highly seasoned educator who's based here in the United States of America. So we have Professor Elmer-Rico Mojica, and so for today, he will be talking about like improving teaching and learning using action research. But before we give the floor to Professor Mojica, allow me to introduce him briefly. So Professor Elmer-Rico Mojica is currently an associate professor at the Department of Chemistry and Physical Sciences at the Dyson College of Art and Sciences of Pace University. And this university is currently based in New York City. So just to give you an idea of his educational background, so he finished his bachelor's degree in agricultural chemistry at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, under the mentorship of Dr. Amelia Tejada. He then went on and took up his master's degree in agricultural chemistry, minor in food science at the same university. His master supervisor or advisor was Professor Florina Merca. And then he went on, he left the Philippines to study at the University of Buffalo, at the State University of New York, at Buffalo, New York. Nakita niyo yan sa balita, pero ang good thing that came out of it, marami tayong graduates na magagaling na Pilipino dyan. So Professor Elmer-Rico Mojica, he earned his Doctor of Philosophy and Chemistry degree with specialization in analytical and environmental chemistry back in 2010. So he was actually mentored by Professor Diana S. Aga, who's a Filipino professor there, and Professor Frank V. Bright. So I tried to come up with a fairly concise introduction of Professor Mojica because he has like a 17-page CV, by the way. So abutin po tayo ng 2 oras bago natin mapasadahan yun. But just to give you an idea po. So Professor Mojica is an educator, he is a researcher, and most especially he is a very passionate advocate of STEM education. So regular speaker po natin si Professor Mojica. If I'm not mistaken, this is the 4th or 5th time that he is delivering a talk to the Filipino Science Hub community. But just to give you an idea, he is a B-medaled educator. So these are some of the most recent awards or recognitions that he received. So in 2019, he was recognized as America's finest teacher. So he received their award for as Alirang Guro. So this was sponsored by the Association of Filipino American Teachers of America. O yan. So internationally recognized po ang ating speaker for today. He also was the recipient of the Charles and Homer Pace Faculty Awards. So this is a big deal because this is a university-wide teaching faculty award po. So he was recognized in 2020. Medyo na-delay lang ang awarding. So it was given to him in 2021, mainly because of the pandemic. And then very recently, he was honored by the Kapisan ng Kimika ng Pilipinas, Southern Tagalog, with a Distinguished Achievement Award in teaching. So yan po, medyo bigatin po ang ating speaker for today. And so with that, I would like to give the floor to Professor Elmer-Mojica. So Kuya Meng, take it away.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jeff, for the kind introduction. So I hope you see the slide that I have, okay, the one that contains our beloved Philippine flag, okay. So, as what Jeff mentioned, I'm a tenured faculty at Pace University, but in addition to that, I'm teaching as an adjunct in York College here in New York City, and a guest lecturer of my alma mater and Jeff's alma mater, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about action research and the experience that I have with using this action research, how it improved the teaching and learning experience of myself and the students that I have. So if we're going to look at the outline of my talk, okay, we're going to talk about action research, the definition, the types, and the purpose, and then how it was useful on my part during the pandemic, okay? I'm going to give to you all the stuff that I did that's related to action research during the pandemic, the outputs that come out of it, and maybe some latest application that you can use the action research to. Okay, so to tell you frankly, I was trained as a chemist, so I don't really have an education background. So if we're going to look at the specialty that I have in the research that I have, it's basically I'm an analytical chemistry person. So I use instruments to analyze chemicals of interest in whatever fields. So that's what I usually do. The typical basic or applied research. So when I was invited in a talk by a professional organization there in the Philippines earlier this year and give me the topic of action research, I was really nervous at the first time. So I told the organizer, give me a week, I'm going to read something about it. And then I realized that what I'm doing in chemical education is really what we call action research. Okay. So if we're going to look at the different definition of action research, I'm going to borrow some quote here from expert Elmer-Rico, who defined action research as a fancy way of saying, let's study what's happening at our school and decide how to make it a better place. So we could say in the world, there's only two permanent things, either you change or death. I think those are the ones that permanent, okay? Or here in the US, they said the two permanent things is debt and taxes. Okay, kahit ano mangyari, kailangan mo pa magbayad ng tax. Then later on, Parsons and Brown define action research as a form of investigation designed for use by teachers to attempt to solve problems and improve the professional practices in their own classroom. It involves systematic observations and data collection, which can then be used by the practitioner researcher in reflection, decision-making, and the development of more effective classroom strategies. So if we're going to look at the definition that we have here, okay, we could say that the main goal of action research is just to improve your teaching, okay? To improve, we could say, what's happening in school. Now, In addition to that, the latest that I got at 2007 from Kristen Miller, she defined action research as a natural part of teaching. Teachers are continually observing students. They collect data and changing practices to improve the student learning in the classroom and school environment. So action research provides a framework that guides the energies of teachers towards a better understanding of why, when, and how students become better learners. Okay? Now, you may ask yourself why, or what are the types of these, what we call action research? So I list down, I think, 4 types of action research here. And the first one we could say is the individual action research. This is conducted by one teacher or staff member. And this type of research, okay, we could say is conducted to analyze a specific task. Okay, so a teacher may wonder if implementing group activities within an English class will help improve learning. Okay, so the way that you're going to do, the teacher would perform the research by implementing a group activity for a certain length of time, and after the action is performed, the teacher analyzes the results and then implements changes or discarding the program if not found to be useful. So pwedeng sariling sikap yung action research. And then you can also work with another, we could say, co-teachers of yours and do a collaborative action research. So it involves a group of people researching a specified topic. So let's say all the science teachers, all the math teachers, so they want to implement some changes. So they want to see how the response of the student. Will it improve the learning activity or the learning process, or it will not have any effect at all? Okay, so when collaborative research is done, there's more than one person that is involved in the implementation of the new program. So typically a group of students larger than just one class are tested and the results are analyzed. Okay, now another thing that we could look at is if you want a much bigger number of the students that participate, so maybe you can involve the whole school. And in this way, okay, you need the principal's permission or involvement. Okay, so here, what you're implementing, we could say, is a program that will create, okay, from a problem found within an entire school. So when you have this school-wide action research, okay, it is what we call a research wherein a school may have concerns about the school-wide problem. So maybe hindi nagpa-participate sa PTA yung mga parents, okay? So you want to have a research, how do you increase their participation? Okay? So yan yung example ng what we call school-wide. Now in most textbooks of action research, this is just the what we call the three types of action research. Now, in some, they have this so-called district-wide, diba? Sa atin, if I'm not mistaken, since I'm a public school product, when I was in elementary, so yung elementary school mo, yung mababang paaralan ng San Roque, which is my school, which is a barrio school. So, several school, okay, in neighboring barrio, they make up the district. And then, several districts, let's say I grew up in Zamboanga City, okay, they form this so-called division office, right? Tapos yung buong region 9, yun yung region-wide. So you can also do action research in district-wide. So district-wide research is used for an entire school district, and this type of action research is usually more community-based than the other type. And this type may also address organizational problems within the entire district, from district-wide staff for each school in the district. Okay, so parang ano na to, malaki na yung, madami na yung involved, so the problem is a little bit community-wide problem. Okay, and then you may ask yourself why you have to do this action research. So I read an article from this website, okay, and they gave the reason why you do action research. So the first reason that they put there, okay, action research powers professional growth. Okay, so they said that action research is a powerful form of teacher-driven professional development. You as a teacher would ask yourself, how do I improve my work? I always ask it every semester. Okay, how do I make the teaching and learning experience much better? Okay, so we could say the action research is fundamentally a professional improvement strategy. So we could say that's one of the reasons why you have to do it. Now, another reason why you have to do it is maybe you have to action research makes change manageable. Action research would help teachers focus on one aspect of their practice they would like to improve. Maybe specific questions and a finite time period bind each iteration, and this ensures natural process for reflection and planning. So every year, I always ask the question, is the online component of my class improving the performance of the students or not? And fortunately for me and unfortunately for the students, I found a correlation that those who are doing the online requirements are doing much better compared to those who are not doing it. Okay, so it makes it more manageable for you if you implement, like, say, a process and you want to see if it works. And another thing we could say, if you're doing collaborative, school-wide or district-wide, it promotes collaboration. Okay, so the systematic nature of the action research promotes purposely collaboration. Okay, so if you interact or deal other what we call teachers or collaborate with what we call other teachers, so it's much better to see the change that you implement. Okay, is it working only in your section? Is it working on the other section? So you might say, why is it working in one section, the other one doesn't work? So that's where a collaborations comes in, and it's much better. As I say, two heads is much better than one. Okay, and then based on this, what we call collaboration, you can also, we could say, action research labs being shared. So if you ever wondered how to improve a certain aspect of your practice, then it's entirely likely that another teacher is also wondering how to improve the exact same aspect of their own practice. So what you can do is you get together and share, okay, your experience with one another. And I think this is the last thing. And I think it's going a powerful reason why you're doing it is you want action research to change some sort of this power system change. Okay, so if you're able to have the sharing ability of action research, it makes a useful vehicle for influencing the school and the district policy. So if they see that it's giving positive changes in a certain classroom, and then you apply it in a school or a school, and then in the districts, so you can see that maybe you can solve problem that makes you wonder, is our educational system improving or not? Maybe this is one way to check if the K-12 program is really working. Okay, maybe adjust in your place. So that's we could say one of the things that you can look at it. So I'm trying to look at this at the aspect of our Philippine situation. But I use action research for my own purpose. I would say the one that I have here is just 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, I don't need the power system change because there's only few of us, so we just promote collaboration, and there's always minor thing that we need to change. Okay, now if you're going to look at the steps, there are many steps, but I think we can summarize here. First, you identify a problem, maybe at the classroom level first. Okay. And then you develop and implement an action research plan. and then you act on it, you collect and analyze the data, okay? And then once you get the result, you're going to use it, you reflect it, and then maybe if you see that it improve your class, and if you share it with another person or another teacher, it will improve the class, then, okay, you can what we call share the results that you have. Now, I'm not really familiar about this one, as I've told you, but something happened in 2020 that forced us to think, okay, what are we going to do? And I think everyone was affected with this event in 2020, and that's what we call the pandemic. And until now, some of you are still in what? Work from home setup, okay, or a virtual environment. So everything changes. In March of 2020, almost 9 out of 10 students worldwide were impacted by the pandemic. And overnight, okay, everything became what we call here in higher education, a Zoom university. Okay, so during that time, we have to implement changes. And when we implement these changes, we want to make sure that the students are involved, because it's not only us as teachers, okay, that are concerned with these changes. So whatever changes that we have to make sure that the other stakeholder, which are the students, are also involved. So if you're going to look at the things that happens here, okay, so everyone was affected by the pandemic. And during that time, the dilemma that we have, okay, I was teaching both at Pace University and York College. So the term that they use when we shift during the week of, if I'm not mistaken, March 8th, in Pace University, we call it remote learning. So I'm teaching there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then in York College, I'm teaching there Friday and Saturday. We call it the distant learning. So overnight, we have dilemma. And I think it's not only us who have that, what we call dilemma. It's every teacher, every school, every administrator of what we call schools, okay, has this dilemma. How are we going to shift from face-to-face setup to virtual setup? Okay. Now, to give you a background of the schools that I have, so usually I use the subway. That's usually the mode of transportation that we have here. So if I want to go from Pace University to York College by sleeping while sitting, I take this J train. If I need to be earlier by 15 minutes, I have to do it sleeping while standing. So I take the 6 trains and go to the E train. The last stop for all of these are what we call the York College. Okay. So the announcement that we have there, so if you're going to look at this, March 10, when Pace University announced that we're going to shift to remote learning. And then in York College, we have it, okay, on March 11. Okay. So everything was transformed overnight. What we're going to do, okay? So the dilemma that we have during that time is, how are we going to transition during the middle of the semester? How can we maintain the same environment we have in face-to-face environment once we go online? Okay, are we ready for this mode of teaching? Okay, so how will the students react to this, what we call mode of teaching? So you could see there, okay, the one that you want to do one thing at a time, parang binagsak lahat yung kailangan mo gawin nung nagkaroon ng transition. So what do we do? What did we do here? Especially the lab. How are we going to do the laboratory classes? So during that time, I think in one school, we have having our spring break. In the other school, we're forced to have a remedial break. So we were trained how to use all the LMS that we have, including the Zoom platform, okay? So what we did there is, we could say, action research on the pandemic. So we are put into action. Because these are the questions that we ask ourselves. So these are the things that we want to know, okay? And what will be the answers of the students? And then from the answers of the students, we're going to implement the action. So I think that's how action research is. You do a research, and then based on the response, the next thing that you're going to do is to act based on the response. Okay? So maybe during that time, we look at the feedbacks on the transition to online remote learning. And then summer 2020, what I did, we did a collaborative research, but I'm the one on the forefront because I'm the one teaching the course. So we find the best way to teach the laboratory class because we need to prepare for the fall semester. In the fall semester, we look at the feedback on some of the school policies. Okay. And then summer 2021, I teach again the laboratory class. So we're still trying to find the best way to teach the laboratory class. And then fall 2021, we went back in person, okay? But the Omicron hit us. So I want to look at the feedback when they took the final exam online, okay? And all throughout the pandemics, I would say the action research that I have there is just doing surveys and then looking at the feedbacks of the class and then act, okay, on the response that they have. So when the pandemic hit, I contact all my colleagues who are teaching here. Okay, all of us are in private university. Okay, so what we did is we come up with a survey with the same question and we asked our students about it. So I'm teaching 2 schools there. So this is the one that I'm teaching for general chemistry courses, lecture. So the first thing that we want to know is what's the situation of our students? So whenever we do an online, we have to ask, do they have a computer? So among the students that respond here, as you could see, Pace University students, which is private, all of them has computer. Your college, which is public, 2 of them don't have, okay? And the other question that we have there is, do you have a reliable internet access? So 3 of the students said no. And then the same 2 students, okay, that says they don't have any computers, said they don't have internet access. And then I also asked, because we're trying to lay here, what are the alternatives that we have? So maybe we're thinking, looking at some video at YouTube or recording a session, will watching these videos, okay, in chemistry topics be helpful to the students? So all of the Pace University students says yes. Your college, 3 of them said no. And then we asked, are you willing to do virtual meetings using Zoom? So 34 out of 36 says yes. Okay, your college, 9, most of them said no. Now you might ask yourself, why there's a difference? So just to tell you, Pace University has Zoom subscription. Your college doesn't have Zoom subscription during the time. Okay, so here, what are we trying to do? We're trying to look at the situation of our students. And then we're going to act to the present situation. Now, how do you think we resolve this computer and internet problem in your college? So we asked the administration, some students of us don't have their own computers and they don't have a reliable access. Some students also in Pace University did that. And we informed the administration about that. And you know what they did? They rent computers to those students. And they gave them pocket Wi-Fi so they can attend the thing. Now, if we didn't do this thing, we'll never get to that action. Okay? Now, although we don't have Zoom, because in the training they said use Zoom, so we asked the administration, they said, oh, the Blackboard, it has a Zoom-like features. You cannot just see your student, but you can have like we call a conference there, but it's just audio and you can show your PowerPoint. So I think that's the first thing that we, for me, like the first action research that I did. But during that time, I didn't know it's an action research. But you see there's a problem, okay? How are the students going to accept this change in the teaching environment? And then we also ask them to have an answer open-ended question. Do you have any concern on this mode of teaching? So we're trying to put ourselves in the shoes of our student. Okay, so these are some of the comments that they put. Only minor concerns attributed to not being in the classroom setting. I never learned online before in this way, so this will take adjusting to. On top of this, how will the labs be conducted? So you could see the problem that the teachers are thinking are also the problems that the students are have. Okay, the thing that we do is, how are we going to conduct the lab? And then another student says providing solutions to any problems on the slides, because usually what I do, I put my problem in the slides and then we solve it together. Okay, so they're problematic on that. That I will not understand the material and I have no one to ask. So I would say these are valid problems. Okay, and then we also ask question, what are the things that you're most worried about related specifically to class once we move to remote learning? I'm worried about being able to ask questions in the classroom setting. It was nice during class to be able to ask you if something was confusing. And then the organization factor, because it is online, virtual, so they might think that, okay, organization problem will happen and not being able to learn as well. So those are just some of the comments that they put that me as a teacher take into consideration. Okay, and then after exam, I monitor the progress that they have because we never do online exam before. So what I do, we already did our exam one in person. So when they did the exam, okay, I try to ask this different question and using the Likert scale with 5 as strongly agree and what we call 1 as strongly disagree. So you could see here, okay, the average number that you have. So the exam is difficult. So they're almost in the middle, okay, except for your college exam 3 that they said strongly agree that it is difficult, okay. Exam 3 is really difficult compared to exam 2. Exam 2, I would say in the Gen Chem 2 course that I teach is the easiest one, okay? And the time given to the exam is enough. So for Pace University, it's 90 minutes. In your college, I have to follow the departmental policy, which is just 1 hour. That's why you could see the score that they have is mostly strongly disagree, okay? And then the question covered in the exam is equally distributed among the covered chapters, okay? I will do better. This is the thing that I really want to know. I will do better if this exam was taken during normal face-to-face class. Now, to give you an idea, okay, it is an open note exam, at least during that time, okay? But if you're going to look at the answer, I think they have a hard time already there. But at least in the one exam there, they said they do it better if it's face-to-face. And then I'm happy with my exam results, okay? So here, after I think they look at the score, so some of them are happy. Now, this is really low because the average score, I think here, they get an 85. And here, it went back to the normal average score. So 85 average here it went back to around 57 average score, the same as what we call in-person average. So here, it gives me feedbacks on how to adjust to the next exam. So like the research that I have here, how does the exam help? Or what is the reaction from the exam, okay, from the students, so that I can adjust for the succeeding exam. And it was conducted after they took their exam, okay? And then I asked them, do you have any comments, suggestions, reactions with regards to the exam that you have taken? Okay, so I always ask for their input, okay? So here, I appreciate you being on Zoom to help answer our question, because during exam, I make myself available in Zoom and all they need to do is log in and ask questions. Yet no comments. I thought it was the best the exam could have possibly been given the circumstance. And then I have no suggestion. I feel this is the best option for our current situation. So if you heard this comment, you could just say that I did my best, okay, to conduct or to hold the exam in that way. So that's what it means to me. Okay? Because sometimes if we as a teacher, we take differently as a student. But the way I try to do it, when I started my teaching career, I want to put myself in the shoes of my student. Okay? And at the end of the spring semester, so I asked this feedback. So I asked them, are you satisfied with the shift to remote learning? So it's always divided. And your college said no. Most of them said no. And then will you pace better with face-to-face setup? So most of they said yes. Okay. And do you prefer face-to-face setup? And most of them said yes. Okay. And then is Zoom better than Blackboard? So here, Pace University, they have both access to Blackboard and Zoom, but your college only what we call Blackboard. So this is the only question. So most of them prefer what we call the Zoom. Maybe it has something to do that you can see each other face to face. Compared to the Blackboard, it's just like you're playing Spirit in the Glass. Are you there? Okay. So these are the comments that what we call got during this what we call transition to virtual learning. So based on the one that they have there, is I feel like I did my part to help them in the transition. Okay. Although says the online platform to me lacks the in-person experience. Okay. Some are satisfied, some are not satisfied. So it's always like that. Okay. But at least for me, I did my best. Okay. To help them in the transition in virtual learning. Okay. Now, when we did the summer, so the dilemma that we have during the spring 2020, the option that we adopted in the laboratory classes is to give them videos of the experiment being performed, give them the raw data, and then they process the data and write the lab report. Now, during the summer, we maintained that setup. But in addition to that, we asked them to do some home-based experiment. Okay? And then we asked them questions at the end. So it's still the Likert score. It's strongly agree, strongly disagree. And we're trying to what we call look at the reactions from the students. Okay? Do they learn something if they do this setup during that time? So this is the number that we have. So as you can see here, most of them, okay, disagree that the laboratory class should be held asynchronously because the lab was held asynchronously. So maybe they want more time to themselves, okay? And then during the fall, when the university decided they can go back, but only the lab. The lecture is still virtual, and the lab would be what we call based on the CDC guidelines. So there's a minimum capacity. So we can only accommodate at most 6 students, okay? Because 25% and a laboratory class is usually 24. So I have a survey there asking for feedback about this policy. So the first thing that I asked if they are what we call a freshman. Okay, so most of them are freshmen. And then I asked them, okay, do Pace University respond to their needs? And in addition to that, I have the question, additional question, why or why not? So most of them said that at least the university is responsive and they put some of the reason there. Okay, it's difficult adapting to this learning style, but they tried a lot. Okay. Emails and phone calls both take some time. So although we are remote, Pace University did a lot to help with this what we call semester. And the professors piled on work, which was overwhelming, but Pace University students did their best to get through the semester. So again, I'm trying to look at the what we call the situation of my students. And then I ask them, are we satisfied with the present setup in lecture, which is 100% online? And as you could see, okay, the answer varies. Okay, but we could see in general, they still agree what we call with the statement that they're satisfied. Okay. And then I asked them, because the laboratory setup is every week, one of the students in the group will go to the lab and perform the experiment and then share the data to the other group mates. And then what will happen the next week, another member of the group will do that. But we noticed only 75%, 74% went there. The other took advantage, although some of them already asked for what we call exemption because they have some family members who have some comorbidities. And during this time, we don't have vaccine yet. What we have is testing. Okay. And then here you could see some of the problem that he says, if they're not satisfied or satisfied with the present laboratory set, that's hybrid. Okay. So I felt like I learned nothing. Very confusing on the days you don't go in. You basically have to teach yourself on how to do the lab. Okay. Others who said it was organized in a really good way. And then others said I would do better in school when it's in class. Okay. So the circumstances are understandable, not ideal, but the best option. So what do we do from this lesson that we learned? So we try to improve it during the succeeding semester, which is still hybrid in the lab, but okay, it's and also in what we call online in the lecture. But we are able to improve the situation where the students don't show up, because I myself experienced, oh, I wasn't able to go to the lab because I don't have the test result yet. And he did it to me during the semester. And the third time he emailed me like that, I was so pissed off. I told him, Pace University has their own testing. Okay, if you keep waiting on the result from the outside, you might as well take the test in Pace University because it's free. Okay? Some students are trying to what we call take advantage of the system that we implement, but we can only know it if there's feedback from them. Okay, and then I surveyed them at the end. So ask them, list some factors that are helpful for them to survive the course during the semester. And then why are they helpful? So they said the OWL, that's the online component, the tutoring that is virtual but is offered by the university, and then the video from the YouTube, the recorded lectures that they have, okay, and the lab setup and pre-lab example. So what we have during the summer, I recorded the pre-lab of all the experiments in general chemistry that was used, okay, by the whole general chemistry students. Okay. And then during that time, I don't know why the university has to shift or change their learning module system or learning management system, the LMS. So I asked them, how do they feel changing from Blackboard to classes? I'm just trying to get the feedback from them, okay? Because that means adjusting to a new system, okay? And here I asked them because some of them, if not most of them, will be my students again in the next semester in Gen Chem 2. So I asked them, how are they going to prepare for the next class and what's the experience that they have? And this is very helpful for me to improve my teaching when I went to teach them for the second time in Gen Chem 2, from Gen Chem 1 to Gen Chem 2. So I asked them, how are they going to prepare for Chem 112? So this was conducted around December after they took the final exam. Okay, so as you could see, I tried to just what we call look at the response and act. What's the next thing that I'm going to do based on their what we call response? Okay, so after they took the final exam, okay, I asked them if they're satisfied. This is what we called in fall 2021. So what happened here? So for 2021, the university decided in person with mask and vaccine. But what happened during December? There's a rise in cases, the Omicron. So all of a sudden, we have to do our final exam online. So the way I try to do it, I always take it into consideration that I think it's not fair because the students was doing in person the whole semester and all of a sudden they did it online. So I tried to get, what I did, I get the feedback that they have, okay? If they're satisfied with the final exam, because some students do well in person, some students do well online. And here we're using this, what we call Proctor software, okay? So it varies here in the number of students if they're satisfied in the exam, 9, 7, 16, 12, 7. I was hoping to do better, but it was not what I wanted. I did not do well and was hoping for better of myself. I can see my grade. I struggle with this class, so I don't expect an amazing grade for my exams. I am content with the grade I got, considering I studied and finally passed an exam. Because I see some students who did well in in-person exam, but didn't do well in the final exam. So what I'm trying to do there is trying to be fair to the situation that they have. Okay? So by looking at the way that they're thinking, I think I could say myself, oh, maybe this person is not really good in online exam. So I have to consider the grade that he got. Okay? So I have this what we call option to look at the students, the way that they have this so-called personalized learning. Okay? And then I like the setup of the final exam. So this is for another class where the given all information. Oh, this is the same class. Because what we did is we give everything. Okay, the formula. So just it will be easier for them. Okay. And most of them like that what we could set up. And then I will perform better if the final exam is in person. I always ask this question to them. But I think most of them are neutral on this one because they will have the same preparation, whatever the mode of the exam. And based on this the learning that we have, okay, it makes me really think about this action research that I did, because maybe before 2020, I always think that if you experience how to do online learning, that's it. Okay, experience is the hardest kind of teacher. It gives you the test first and the lesson afterward. But after a while, it makes me think. Okay, especially fall 2020, experience is one thing you can get for nothing. So I think during that time, I said, I experienced online learning, so I think that's enough for me. But after some times, when experiencing for several semesters in online situation, I found out that it's not enough that you learn from experience. What we do is we have to reflect from the experience that we have. And in one conversation with my students, he always told me that give us time to adjust, because this is the worst situation that happened to us. So 2020, we shift from what we call face-to-face to online. And then we adjusted after some times. And all of a sudden, from face-to-face, we shift to what we call in-person. Because there's a new problem that arises when we resume the face-to-face. And I will show it there in our proceedings. But the way that I look at it, come spring 2020. So I look at the experience that I have and then reflect on it. So based on the reflection, I found out I need to change some stuff that I'm doing, okay? And then experience it again, and then maybe reflect it again. I always call it my ERE model, okay? So when I say an ERE model, it's just experience, and then reflection, and then experience, okay? So the way that I talk with my students, that I'm thinking that like an equilibrium. In chemistry, equilibrium is a dynamic state. Okay, so whenever there's a stress that is applied, what the system do is adjust to the stress. So we're thinking the stress here is the pandemic. So any changes that we have there, everything is okay, and then a new variant comes in. So there's always a stress, and the system has to adjust on that one. And the way that I try to look at this, I really apply the MEC here. I have to make sure that the motivation, engagement, and the feeling of community among the students will always be there, whatever the situation. Okay? So that's the thing that I learned during that time. And one thing that I learned, okay, it's not really the technology that will help you survive. Okay? Technology is just a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together, motivating them, the teacher is the most important. That's why I try as much as possible. I try to engage them. I try to make them feel that they are in the community. So whatever I learned during the online class, I incorporate it when we came back to in-person class. One thing that I learned is this discussion board. Even before you meet in person, you can introduce, I ask my students to introduce themselves, their major, okay, and what they plan to do. And at that instance, when one student replies to the comment of another student, you could see that the community starts to build up. Because I think one thing that was lost during the pandemic is the community of the students. They don't feel that they belong to a community. And when you don't have that, you don't have engagement, and the students will not feel motivated. Okay? And I was able to get something out of this, not knowing that this is action research. So way back in 2020, I shared my experience when I was invited to write like a commentary in a journal there in Química. And then the summer stuff that we did was published earlier this year. Okay, and we're surprised that around, I think right now it's around 2,000 views. Okay, so here my colleague and I just wrote the challenges encountered and the students' reaction to practices utilized in a general chemistry laboratory course during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then I'm still trying to finish this thing. I already submitted it, but I want to include the last semester and this semester before I resubmit it again. Okay. And I think I have some question that I will ask you also. Now, the thing that I told you about the problems that we encounter when we go back to this in person, the student seems like zombie. Okay. And until this is spring semester, it's still like there's a zombie behavior that they have. When we say a zombie behavior, they're physically present, but their mind is somewhere else. Okay. And it's not only in my course, because me being the chair of the student affairs on the whole New York campus of Pace University, I asked the other faculty of other disciplines if they also observe that behavior. And most of them said yes. Okay. It's just like they cannot take away the laptop away from them. That's why this semester, when I asked for feedback, I asked the question, is taking away laptop during class okay? And I'll try to share to you the results that I have. So do you see some sort of a Google form? Do you see a Google form? Class? I just want to make sure.
No, Kuya Mengo. So what we're seeing is essentially just the slide.
Just a slide. Okay, so ano yun natin? This one. So usually when I did this one, before I used the learning, the LMS of the school, but when I got to learn this Google form, so I used this one. So one of the questions that I have there, so as you can see, I still have the question there. I'm happy with the present setup in the lecture. I'm happy with the present setup in the laboratory. Okay. And then state the reason I'm engaging class because I see that there's a disconnection between me and my students when we resume the in-person class. So I'm trying to ask this question to make sure if they're really engaged. Okay, so what keeps you engaged during class? What are the distractions? Because I'm going to use it as I prepare for my next semester. Okay, and one of the questions that I asked them, laptop should not be used by students during class. And I get a violent reaction here. Okay, around 30% strongly disagree. Okay. And then why? I asked them why or why not should be used. Because one time I got so mad with them. I told them, close your laptop. If you cannot do that, get out of my room. Okay. And as you can see here, some of them, lots of people takes notes. Some use their laptop, but I think having our laptop makes more less focus less. So some students take electronic notes. They're a distraction because I suspect that they're doing some other stuff. Okay, can be used to view lectures. Got distracted. I was definitely distracted by my laptop. So when you took away our laptop, I understood the topic. So that's the day I asked them not to use any laptop. Okay, because whatever I do, their score doesn't increase. It's still the same from the first exam to the third exam. So I'm trying to ask myself, what's the problem with this student? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to read this one over the break, and I'm going to use the input that they have there for next semester. That's the way I try to do what we call the action research. And then I ask the question there, did they do the chemistry? So I asked them here, I did all the OWL problems, okay? The OWL is helpful in the course. I did all the quizzes online. So everything they said, they did it. But if you're going to look at this, they're lying. The quizzes are helpful in class. So they're just trying to show that they did everything. But if you're going to look at the score, they didn't really do that, okay? So that way, I can already screen out the students. I said, oh, I don't believe what he's saying. He's saying he's doing it, but based on the record here, he's not doing it. So that's another way to confirm, okay? Some of the questions that I have, is the student really doing what he's supposed to do or the requirements in class? So that's one way of catching them, if they're doing the stuff that they need to do or not, okay? So that's what I applied this semester. And maybe we could say we can have some latest applications here. Jeff, ready na ba yung poll question? I just want, this is just for so what we call doing some sort of an application, just a disclaimer, okay? Because I encountered some of these this semester. So I want you to answer some of the questions that you have here and see how are you going to apply this question here. So I would say we have our what we call elections. So if you're teaching the college, have you asked your students how they're affected by the result? Okay. TikTok is very popular. Have you asked them if it's a good way to teach students? Okay. And then think that you could ask yourself, do we have to be a good model, okay, for our student? And then here, the most important question, are you ready for the face-to-face setup? So maybe this is just an application that we have here, okay? Now it's up to you how you answer them. Because I'm teaching a course in UP Los Baños this semester. And when the election come in, a lot of students email me, can we not have any class this week? So what did I do? I want to look at the problem, okay? Because if we don't do any class, I ask myself, we're going to lose time, okay? And then I ask myself, if I'm going to lose class, what we call do class, and they're not interested, I'm going to waste time. So I asked them some questions. So I again, what we call use the Google Forms, okay? To ask question about this one. Why? Because I want to know how I can help them to go on or at least finish this thing. Now, as I've told you, I don't have any intentions about doing this thing, okay? The election is done. The winner has been what we call known. So all I have to say, as I told Jeff, whatever we do, we have to serve our country because the country is much more than our candidates and other personalities, okay? So I'm going to share to you. So this is the question that I asked you, okay? I'm going to show to you the answer to the polls later on. I'm not ending the what we call the poll yet, but I just like to share to you the answer that I got from my student. So as you could see, spring survey, if you're going to look at my Google Drive, you could see here, Chem 111 lab survey, end of semester survey. So I always use this, what we call thing. So this is really very useful if you want to do action research. So I just try to share to you this thing that I have. So I have 20 students in UP Los Baños. They're taking an instrumental analysis course. So I asked them, so did you vote? Okay, 100% of those who participated was yes. Are you excited with the election? Said yes. And then, are you happy with the election? Almost said no. Okay, are you bothered by the result of the election? And then said no. Okay, the results of the election affected me academically. So this is the one that I'm looking for. Okay, because if it is affected academically, that means it will affect the way I'm going to teach them. And then I ask them how the results affected or not affected them. And these are the things that they get. I'm not going to what we could bring it up because this is my own personal use. But as I've told you, I'm just applying action research to solve a dilemma that I have in class. And then I ask the question, I still have the energy to finish the course this semester. So mostly on that side. Okay. And then my outlook in life changed after the election. So I'm just trying to look at the situation that they have. And then this is the thing that I'm going to look at before I resume class this week. How can I be of help to you as we finish this course this semester? So this is the one that I usually look into consideration. Okay? Because I think this is one way as a teacher that I can help them. Because you have to empathize with what's happening with them. Okay? What's the use of teaching them when their mind is somewhere else? You're just going to waste your time. Okay, but if I didn't do it, I'm not going to be able to know it. Okay, and I didn't force them to do it. Okay, because this is the same thing that we did when Trump won in 2016 here. A lot of students were affected, the minority students, the LGBTQ students. So I think as a teacher, it's my role to what we call help them, educate them that that's life. Okay, you win, you lose. What's important is you learn. Okay, you cannot always get what you want. Okay, but it doesn't mean that's the end of the world. Take it like a learning experience. And I always tell them, hey, the best thing that you're going to do is to compete with yourself. You're not competing with one another. You have to be the best of yourself by beating your own self. That's always the one that I tell my students, whether they're based in the Philippines or based here in the USA. So here, these are the actions that I'm going to do. But as you could see, everything is already taken for. Yung isa, paanpun po sa New York. Okay? So I just what we call being available to the students' concerns regarding the class and then adjusting the deadlines of quizzes. You extended the needed help with this process that everyone's going through by setting lenient deadlines to quizzes and the problem set. So these are the things, or these are the actions that I can do. Okay, so I'm just trying to look what's the post-election effect to this student. And then this week I asked them, how are you going? And everyone said, oh, we are already in the acceptance stage. Sabi ko, talagang ganyan. Wala tayong magagawa. Magmamaktol ka, the world will continue to go around, to go on. Okay? So that's the thing that I think one of the action research that allow me to do this thing. Now, you can ask the question that you have here. Okay? I think the most important one here is this. Are you ready for the face-to-face setup? Now, the three questions that I have, I leave it up to you. Okay? Because as I was trained in UP, you have to be open to everything that is around you. Okay? Because if your students are affected by the election results, I think as a teacher, there's a way for you to help them. Okay? So TikTok was very popular during that time. So is this a good way to teach students? Okay? And then here, do we have to be a good model to our students? Because that's the thing. For me, I have a moral obligation to my students. Kailangan nga, sabi nila, Kung pwede nga maging santo ka, maging santo ka. But as I said, I'm only human, so you can expect me to do mistakes. But for you, I would say, are you ready for the face-to-face setup? Okay, so if we're going to look at the results, these are the things that we have. So maybe, okay, you have the yes or no. If you're teaching elementary, maybe it will not affect. But if you're teaching college, I can assure you, I was surprised with that thing that happened. But maybe you might say, oh, it's UP. Okay? Okay? So stick to a good way to students, teach students, it says 38, and then you have 62. So I leave up to you. Okay? And then do we have to be a good role model? And at least I think most of you agree with me in a majority. Okay? And then are you prepared to go back to the face-to-face mode of teaching? Maybe you can ask that to your incoming students. Okay? And then you can ask them, what are the worries that you have when we resume face-to-face? So that's the thing, putting yourself in their situation. Okay? And as we go on, so as I've told you, I think I shared this already last time, but I think the students appreciate what I did because I take into consideration the situation that they have. And as of now, whenever we see each other, because most of them I didn't see, and when I see them personally, I always tell them, in what courses am I your teacher? And then they say, oh, professor, you are my teacher. Like that. Oh, the one that we're in, you gave some drama during that time. But I like to share to you because I think this is the greatest output that I have. So I hope this play. For those who have watched me already, I think Jeff knows this already. Okay, it was already shared last time, but I'm just telling you to you, now I know why action research works. Okay, because all the stuff that I did based on their comments, they appreciate it in the end. So this is what they did at the last days, in case you have not what we call watch it yet. So I try to say, well, okay, nawala. So I'm trying to go, okay, this is a Twitter page. So you see some sort of kids in front of me. Oh no, you make me cry.
I can send you the video.
This resolution is not good. Hey, you have a conspiracy theory against me. I hope you learn a thing. You may say, oh my God. I know this is not the right way to chemistry, but I hope you learn something. I really want to teach this face to face, but sorry, I can be emotional sometimes, but I'm really sorry that we have to do it this way. So I just like to thank you, everyone, for your patience. For sometimes that I'm not in the right mood. Now I messed up my face when we take the picture. But thank you very much for all the patience that you have. I mean, those in the lab, sometimes if I'm moody, it's Monday afternoon. But to tell you frankly, as I told my student last time, sorry, Kyle, if I always have the hot head to you.
It's okay.
But to tell you frankly, it's all what we call part of a job. Don't take it personally, because to tell you frankly, whatever I said today, I'm going to forget it when we see each other again. And I'm hoping that we're going to be in person next semester, because you're not the only one who have a hard time learning stuff. It's also hard for us to teach in this thing. And so I think that's the product of we could say the action research that I did during that time. They are the one who was the recipient when we transitioned in fall 2020 to spring 2021. So I tried to monitor the situation that is happening to my students, and I try to incorporate changes to them. Okay, it was stressful to them, but more stressful for me. Okay, and through the year, I always tell my student that it is an honor for me to be given an opportunity to teach them, because as what McDonald said, to teach is to touch our lives forever. Okay, I get it from McDonald Philippines. Okay, so I would say you can visit this website that I have. Some of the previous webinars that I have, the links are still available by the organizations or schools that invited me on that. Maybe you can learn something out of it. And if ever you want, what we call what we call this speaker in some events in your place, I'm more than willing to what we call do it for free. Okay. In fact, I'm going home this July, and I'm going to work in my wife's home province in Marinduque State College to analyze or to look at the present situation of the Mark Copper incident there. Okay, so the vice president of the college is a housemate of mine. So I asked her if I can do something, and they said they're going to make me like a balik scientist, and we'll see what I said. I'll see what happens. So thank you very much, Jeff, Filso Hubs, and everyone here. Thank you very much.
Ayan, maraming salamat po Kuya Meng for the very I mean talaga pong ang dami naming natutunan when it comes to the conduct of action research. And so at this point po, we'll give Professor Mojica a few minutes to rest his voice, drink water, and then I'll just go over siguro po a few promotional materials po of like about Filipino Science Hub, what we do here. I think this is a very good audience kasi mostly teachers yung nandito. And then yung upcoming events natin. So allow me to share my screen po just so I can go over a few of these materials. So, all right. Can you see my screen, Kuya Meng? Presentation mode. You can see it. Okay, so para po sa mga guro natin na nasa audience ngayon, so kami po ang so Filipino Science Hub, as mentioned earlier during the introductory video. So we do have a host of programs that promote yung quality ng STEM education in this from the perspective of teaching and learning. So ito po yung roadmap na binubuo namin para sa mga programa natin sa Pilipinas, with the ultimate goal of building a community where Filipino STEM educators, learners, and STEM professionals like Professor Mojica can freely interact. And also, like magkaroon po ng information exchange kasi yun po yung key for us to be able to essentially increase yung number ng Filipinos and essentially ng students who would pursue STEM as a profession. And we know that STEM is very crucial when it comes to nation building. And so we also mentioned earlier that we do have two main program portfolios. So the first of which is Filso Hub Research University, under which we have been developing a number of materials to provide basic education when it comes to the research process. So lahat po yan nandun din po sa ating social media spaces. But then most importantly, and I think most relevant to this audience, is what we call Filso Hub Education. So under this portfolio, we have we have a range of different training programs para po sa mga guro. So capacity building para sa ating mga nagtuturo ng STEM. And so just to give you an idea po, ano po ba talaga yung conceptual framework nitong aming advokasya. So we are coming up with programs that not only foster the development of students when it comes to learning in the different areas of STEM, but kumbaga yung foundation po niyan is really capacity building ng ating mga guro. So we're coming up with programs, essentially different interventions that would help kumbaga, build yung confidence, agility, and adaptability of all of our educators from the college level pa lang po, yung ating mga practice teachers all the way up to hopefully makakome up tayo ng materials para lahat maging master teacher yung level ng competencies ng ating mga guro. So just to give you an idea of our roadmap. And I would also like to, give you an idea. So siguro po, Kuya Meng, your webinar is the 70th offering of Filipino Science Hub. So over the past couple of years, actually since May of 2020, we have already rolled out 70 web events. If you would multiply those number of events by the number of expertise, by yung expertise hours na na-share na, that translates about 167 of expertise rendered, to our community. We have already served about 32,000 live participants since we started. So halos na po, we have already filled Araneta Coliseum twice over. And and in totality po, ito po, all these will translate to about 82,000 training hours. So kaya po ginaganahan yung mga kaparehas ni Professor Mojica kasi kitang-kita po talaga yung passion ng ating mga guro na patuloy na matuto. So nakikita natin po yan sa numero. And we also thank you po kasi you don't really benefit much from us kasi hindi naman po kayo, kumbaga libre po ito, pero hindi po namin kayo binibigyan ng load para makapag-dial in. So nakikita po talaga namin na ginugugol po ninyo ang inyong oras at ang inyong resources for this, and yun po yung nag-fuel sa aming mga efforts. And so ito po, I would also like to briefly talk about a teaching fellowship that's currently ongoing. So this is a tripartite collaboration of the Foundation for the Upgrading of the Standard of Education. So this is the Education Foundation under the Lucio Tan Group of Companies. We're also working with Philippine Normal University. So yung ating pong mga education, yung ating mga pedagogy leaders doon, yung mga young and seasoned ones from PNU na napakagagaling, and also with Filipino Science Hub. So what we're coming up, so this teaching fellowship essentially will para po siyang retooling. So we're coming up with a bunch of interventions that would unang-una, siguro refresh the minds of our teachers when it comes to yung basics of STEM pedagogy. We are also coming up with materials that would help you better adapt or use yung ating education technologies right now, kapareha sa mga pinakita ni Professor Mojica earlier. From the part of Filipino Science Hub, since like our team is composed of Filipino scientists and educators like sa higher education institutions, we're also coming up with practical and innovative STEM teaching strategies po. Kasi kung ano yung mga natututunan at nakikita namin dito sa abroad, sa Amerika at sa Europa at sa iba't iba pa pong universidad na nandun ang aming mga membro, we're actually putting all those together para po maituro sa ating mga guro. So ito po mga materials na ito, mapapakita ko po sa inyo mamaya kung saan nyo siya makikita. And then part of this teaching fellowship is yung pagtuturo po sa mga guro, not just the basics, but how to practice action research and this thing called reflective teaching. So mayroon po kaming pilot run nito which will start in June and July. Focus muna po kami sa mga chemistry and physics teachers kasi itetest muna natin to before natin to i-scale up on a kumbaga nationwide basis. Pero if some of you po is within 5 to 10 years of teaching sa public or private schools ng chemistry or physics, send us a note kasi yun po yung mga test subject po na hinahanap namin ngayon. But we're soon enough we're gonna start like this pilot run. And then after po noon, after ng interventions, yung team ng FUSE, PNU, and Filso Hub will also conduct quarterly monitoring and mentorship. So essentially po, hindi lang po yung tuturuan namin kayo, din iiwanan namin kayo. Meron po nitong mentorship aspect. And then we are also designing, since karamihan po ng mga nandito sa program na to ay scientists, we are also designing this as a formal study. So we'll collect data and collaboratively with the teachers involved, yun pong ating mga teaching fellows, we will also write up and hopefully publish academic articles out of this. Baka po pwede natin maimbitahan si Professor Mojica to also participate in this at one point. All right, so ito po, yun pong interventions that I mentioned to you earlier when it comes to the basics of STEM pedagogy, and most especially yung paggamit ng education technology sa pagtuturo ng STEM sa pabago-bagong modality of education. Yan po ay nagawa na namin at na-roll out na namin. So we have rolled out 4 pedagogical courses and as well as 4 practical and innovative STEM teaching courses. Lahat po yan nasa YouTube account po. If you would like to participate in this, meron din po kaming Google Classroom where you can formally take all of these para po matapos ninyo yan. Ayan. Alright. So kakambyo naman po ako. Marami pong nagtatanong sa amin palagi, paano po daw po maging member ng Filipino Science Hub? So ito po yung part ng aming growth strategy for the year. So soon enough, like sometime in late June or early July, we will be rolling out our membership program po para sa mga guro, sa mga estudyante, at sa mga STEM professionals. So watch out for that po. So this is very exciting. So we have, ang dami po namin malalaking plano para po sa mga guro, estudyante, at sa mga STEM practitioners sa Pilipinas at sa iba pa pong parte ng mundo na merong kumbaga nagpa-participate sa ating community. So watch out for that po. Alright, so a couple of very important announcements. So sa segue muna po tayo. So after nito, so next week po, we will have another webinar. We will feature Mr. Christian D. Laurio from the Department of Science and Technology, so Industrial Technology Development Institute. So he will talk about metrology in chemistry. So ito napakahalaga po nito when it comes to research. How do you measure? Like paano ba yung mga measurements when it comes to the conduct of fundamental research and different sorts of research. But ito medyo contextualized specific to chemistry, but I think marami pong makaka-relate din po dito kahit po nasa ibang area. So watch out for that po, and for details po on how to register to this event, so punta lang po kayo dun sa website namin. And then on June 4th so next month po, so we will have Dr. DDR. So that's double doctorate po ang ating speaker. So Dr. Jerome Palaganas po. So he's the co-founder and CEO of Nanotronic. So he'll talk about the things that you need to know about nanotechnology and its emerging applications for entrepreneurship in the Philippines. So ito po medyo specialized po yung talk, but then highly relevant. So kung meron po kayong mga students who are interested in performing research when it comes to nanotechnology and medyo entrepreneurial yung mindset, so this could be something that you would like to check out. All right. So we'll move on to our Q&A. So Kuya Meng, so marami po tayong meron po tayong mga natanggap na questions, but then I will show you the first few that we were able to capture earlier kasi para mapakita natin sa slides natin. So yung first question po came from Ma'am Asia Sultana. So the question po niya is, what are the ways of collecting data for action research?
Well, for me, I use the survey. I think that's one of the easiest way to collect data. And to tell you frankly, it's not easy as in the typical thing that I do, yung talagang basic or applied research sa laboratory. Because there you have what we call numbers, data, then you process, tapos iaano mo. So what does the data tells you? You have to interpret that. Now here, kasi ang tinitingnan mo naman dito sa action research, yung parang you're trying to solve a problem doon sa class mo. And usually, yung problem na yun is one way for you to improve the teaching and learning experience. So you don't expect the same answer. Kasi as you could see in the data that I showed you, some would like, let's say, the proposed intervention that you want to do. Some would not what we could like it. So in the end, ikaw pa rin yung magdi-decide kung magwo-work ba to or hindi.
Okay. So siguro Kuya Meng, susundan ko po yun ng follow-up question. Kasi this is an impression that I'm getting from yung teachers po natin na na-encounter ko sa outreach activities ko sa Philippines. So meron po siguro kuyang notion that yung parang pag-perform ng action research should be as big or laborsome as pag-conduct ng actual research.
No,
So,
it's not.
yun po, Kuya, could you make a comment po? What's the difference of between a full-blown scientific research or even education research versus action research?
Yung action research kasi is you're looking, let's say, for some factors na maapekta doon sa results mo.
Yeah.
So all you need to do is you keep all the variables the same except for that one variable that you're trying to look at the effect of that. Now, in action research, ito kasi yung problema dito sa action research. It was designed not for publication purposes. It was designed to improve, okay, yung practice of teaching. So, paano mo ma-improve yung nangyayari doon sa classroom mo? And the way that you're going to do it, if it improves in my classroom, maybe I can apply it to the other classroom or to the other classes na kapareho nung sa'yo. I do everything this one. I think kasi before pandemic, I don't really care. But during the pandemic, you have to take into consideration yung factors na nakaka-apekto doon sa estudyante mo. Kasi masyadong na-stress yung stakeholders. Dumating yung time that some of my students don't even want to attend because you know what happened when the vaccine came in. So some students are really what we call bold enough to say, this is crap. Why do we need to learn science when people don't listen to scientists? So paano ko aanuhin yun? May ma-overcome yun sa klase ko. Yeah, we still need to do this thing. So it's through action research. Kasi ang action research naman, hindi mo kailangan yung parang big time eh. You can start small. Okay?
I think, Kuya Mel, you're raising a very important point.
Yeah.
Siguro po sa kabatiran po ng ating mga guro na nasa audiences ngayon. So, hindi po, ang action research, hindi po niya kailangan nung seremonya.
Yeah.
Ginagawa natin sa full-blown research na hindi niyo po kailangan mag-proposal. So, siguro po, Kuya, I think yung example that you have set essentially is maganda po yung kumbaga pwedeng tularan ng mga guro na ginawa niya yon to make some improvements in the classroom situation.
Yeah.
Na hindi naman po nagsulat si Professor Mojica ng proposal na ito yung idea ko, ito yung intro ko. No, it started with a question.
Yeah.
Diba? That you had to answer. So siguro po pero siguro Kuya Meng, siguro po sa konteksto ng pag-practice nito sa Pilipinas, siguro po yung ating mga institutions, to a certain extent, they require them to document things.
Yep.
Yun po. So siguro Kuya Meng, yun lang din po. Could you also make a comment po, when it comes to the documentation or to the report writing, meron po bang pinagkaiba? Mas madali po bang gawin ng action research? Or
for me, as I've told you, kasi depende nga yan kung ano yung purpose mo. For me, I just want to improve my way of teaching to the student. And the only way that I can get them is to ask the question. Now, what if the students don't want to answer? Hindi ko sila mapipilitan doon. Although, I find ways para sumagot sila. I always tell them, I'll give you what we call bonus points because I have a policy in my class. You give me something, you'll get something. You give me everything, I'll give you everything. You give me nothing, I'll give you nothing. So doon sila ma-entice. But, hey, kung hindi mo ibibigay yung paano ba yung carrot to hindi sila mag-ano.
Carrot and stick.
Yeah. And the thing is, ito yung sabi ko nga sa misis ko, mas alam niya to kaysa sa akin because she's an education major. I think you have a course of action research dyan sa education that I didn't take. And I only learned it from my wife and then some of my colleagues na nakakasama ko sa PACE who are education major. So, yung may matutunan ako to the point that I'm going to teach a 2-week immersion for the science high school teachers here na sinusuportahan ng NYC Department of Education. So, ito yung isa sa iaano ko. So, they want also to upgrade the thing. And the main focus that I have is what have you done during the pandemic and what have you learned? Kasi ito yung problem ngayon eh. Okay? ang action research kasi, sometimes it arises because a problem came in. So yung problem namin nung March 2020, how are we going to shift to virtual learning? So we try to what we call put up some action plan, and then we put it to our students, and based on the response, okay, we adjust and then act on it. Tapos na makita namin maganda, that's the time we share. So that's the time that we publish. To tell you frankly, yung publication na ano ko doon sa JChem Ed, it was rejected the first time around. Okay? So I asked my colleague, I told her, because noong una ako lang yung author, I told her, if you want to write it, okay, because the suggestion is to resubmit, help me design the experiment, the class for the next summer. So yung unang sinabit ko, yung first summer lang yun. So nung second summer, pareho kaming non-education, okay? Pero since gusto namin magkaroon sa JChem Ed, because that's the highest we could say, it's an honor for me. I said, makapublish lang ako dun, okay na, kompleto na yung pagiging chemistry professor ko. Ang hirap makapasok dun eh. So she fixed some things, and she said me, maybe we can ask this question. Okay? Maybe we can go at this thing. So parang inaano lang namin, okay, we implement a lot different practices, which is the best. Kung hindi man namin makuha yung best, ano yung reaction ng students sa bawat practice na in-implement namin. So parang ano lang to eh, you start small, but it can expand, okay, exponentially. And it's up to you if you want to continue it. Kasi sabi ko nga, I do this not for paper, okay? I do this to improve my teaching, especially to be on the shoes of my student.
Pero si Professor Mojica po, he raised a couple of very important points earlier. But he was collaborating with fellow educators. And yung iba po kasi participants sa mga kilala rin po namin, mga kasama rin po namin sa Filipino Science Hub. Pero siguro po, para po sa ating mga guro na nagpa-participate, if it comes to a point po that you practiced something, no, if you performed action research inside of the classroom and nakita nyo pong gumana, it is very important din po na i-share niyo yan sa mga kasamahan yung mga guro who may be subject to the same challenges inside of the classroom. So dito din po papasok naman siguro yung kumbaga report writing. So mahalaga din po that you get to document things. So sabi nga po ni Professor Mojica kanina. So yung publication, if you can do it, please do it. Kasi the broader teaching community can benefit from that. All right. Okay, next. So Kuya Meng, speaking of yung ating last discussion, last couple of statements makes it all but natural to transition to this question. So this was a question from Gerald Pass. So in terms of writing action research and thesis, is there a difference in formatting or the manner of writing? So for example, parts removed or written in the MRAD form. So MRAD, so I think this is introduction, yeah. Methodology, results, analysis, and discussion. So yun po Kuya May, siguro po based doon sa familiarity nyo sa mga nakita nyo ng mga reports or documentation of action research, may pinagkaiba po ba?
I think the action research followed the MRAD form.
Okay.
In most of the what we call action research paper that I see. Yep. Kasi kami, pumapasok lang kami sa pagsusulat when we want it to submit. And we follow kung ano yung format ng journal na isasubmit namin. And
to think, this is essentially, siguro nga po, balik tayo dun sa definition ni Professor Mojica kanina po about action research. This is specialized para sa mga guro sa loob ng classroom. So technically, you're performing research. Yes. Yun nga lang po, sana ang matanggal natin is that wag po kayo masyado ma-intimidate na, huwag ko nang gawin kasi nakakatakot kasi hindi kayo sanay. Hindi din po kayo masasanay pag hindi niyo po ginawa. So, di ba po yan? And documenting it is a very good way of practicing po ng pagsusulat.
I think you as a teacher, you always have this report na chine-check ng principal that could be the starting point. Yeah. So pag nakikita nyo, there's progress of what I did to the students, that's action research. because you implemented something to solve a particular problem and it works, and then you can share it with another colleague of yours teaching the same course, and then maybe in the community. Ganun lang naman yun eh. Yung nakikita ko ang mga action research paper, they only involve one class. Tapos titingnan lang nila yung mga questionnaire. So kung let's say nag-incorporate sila ng something doon sa pagtuturo, they look at the scores, pre and post scores ng mga bata. And titingnan nila kung may effect doon. So nung in-incorporate namin ito, let's say the use of humor, the use of video, the use of popular movie clips. Okay? So mas naiintindihan na ba ng student ngayon yung concept no, let's say sa chemistry kung let's say yung concept ng density, naintindihan ba nila yung pinakita nyo yung clip ni Indiana Jones, yung nagsuswap siya ng golden statue with the bag of sand, because that's really what we call density concept. So parang ano mo doon, meron kang question, you ask them before you show the video, and then after you show the video, you ask the same question. So meron bang changes doon sa score nila? So if there's an increase, so that means you did something good. So you can report it. Yun yung simple nga, we could say action. You can do this. The thing is, if I have time, I'll write it, but I'm bombarded by a lot of things.
Ayan. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question po. So we were also able to capture it sa isang slide. So this is a question po. Teka, it moved. Ayan, question po from Ma'am Victoria Odelio. So, good morning, Professor Elmer. What do we need to consider when doing action research to make sure it is suitable for any given study? So, siguro po, try natin kumbaga further gawing medyo specific. So, siguro po baka this is ito medyo may narinig ako mga ganitong questions rin po from other teachers na in terms of materials, no? Kumbaga gusto kong gumawa ng study, how do I ensure na suitable yung design ko ng study at para ma-implement ko sa klase?
I'm trying to pull up a paper of mine. So, sana ba yun? I know I'm here because I'm preparing my portfolio for promotion. So, because this one didn't even come out of what we call planning. Sabi ko nga, it just happened. So I'm trying to look, because this is, we could say, an example of action research. Is this the one? Okay, one. So, do you see? Teka lang. Nasaan na yun? Do you see entertainment?
What we're seeing, Kuya, is a PDF document.
Yeah, which is entertainment. Yeah. So this is an action research. So what I did here, so I showed them some clips. Yeah. So by chapter, meron akong movie clips na pinapakita sa kanila, discussing from the policy, okay, some idea or concept na pinakita doon sa clip. And then in the end, what I did is I asked them, okay, I asked them question like a Likert scale rating. The videos posted to Blackboard are helpful in learning the concept. I like the video posted at Blackboard. So tinitingnan ko lang yung effect of the use of videos doon sa learning process nila. Okay? So based on this thing that they have here, so I got able to, out of the 86 responded, most of them are positive, okay, doon sa use of videos. So ito yung parang gagawin mo, yung isang practice na hindi mo naisip na magkakaroon ng positive effect doon sa students. And then all of a sudden, you saw that it has a positive effect. So what you did is, as a question or as a survey to your students. Okay? That's why sabi ko nga sa inyo, you can start small on this one by incorporating a practice doon sa pagtuturo nyo, and then see if it improves the teaching and learning process. And then in addition to that, I also have another paper. So hindi ko nga alam na ito na yung action research but what we're trying to do is we're given money. So you see this one, video taping. So what we did here, we record the experiments in this course, and then we make it available to what we call the students. And then we ask them, okay, to answer some of the questions. Again, Likert scale. Okay, the purpose of doing that is we want them, before they go to class, to watch the video. So when they go to class, they have an idea on what they're going to do. Okay, so yun we could say, hindi ko kasi masabi yung context kasi the way I do it is, okay, I have this practice. Does this work? So how do I know it works? Sino ang i-involve ko? Sino magsasagot doon sa tanong na nagwo-work ba yung practice ko? Siyempre, yung magbe-benefits doon, which is the student. I don't know how to do it in context because I never was trained in an education manner. Ang ano ko nga, mas alam nung education thing itong action research. It's just that I found out, so action research pala yung ginagawa ko, not knowing it all throughout the year na yung pala yun.
So, siguro si Professor Mojica po, he mentioned like a very important point po that sometimes magde-design kayo ng study. Sometimes meron po siyang iteration na hindi gagana. 'Di ba? Yeah. 'Di ba Kuya Meng? There are times you would try something out. It's not hindi siya dumidikit.
Yeah.
It's not really hitting the mark. But then I have also had discussions with folks from PNU. Ang isa pong very important point that they mentioned about the practice of action research is hindi po to linear.
Yeah.
It's iterative. So sometimes you try it out. Pag hindi gumana, try to study. Ano po ba yung data nyo? Ay baka medyo may kulang sa design. And sabi nga po nila, yung po talagang full sense ng action research is typically it requires 3, 4, or 5 attempts.
Iteration,
Iteration po. Sa iterative, paulit-ulit may cycles po yan. So para po maging confident kayo sa quality ng data, kapag po nag-try kayo ng once, huwag nyo pong masyado pa muna kumbaga seryosohin yung results nun. So kumbaga practicing the scientific method as well, we have to keep interrogating the data. And sometimes it requires 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 or more attempts para po talaga masolidify yung learning. So very important point din po.
If you're going to look at this paper that we have, look, from fall 2013 to fall 2018. Okay? So ang dami naming sinurvey ng mga students doon sa practice namin dito, for us to convince, yes, it's working. And the literature would back us up. So meron kaming nilagay dito na literature na nagsasabi na pag-use ng video, okay, ay nag-i-improve doon sa learning process. So tama yung sinabi nga ni Jeff na it's not a linear, it's not the typical basic or applied research that you do in the lab. Hindi ho yan ganun. Hindi ho ganun yung experience ko.
Opo, minsan po kumbaga 'di ba Kuya Mel, kumbaga sa term ng mga Pilipino, the more entries you send, the more chances of winning. So yun po. Pero and that's the same po. That holds true for actual scientific research. 'Di ba? Nakikita niyo po kasi kumbaga sa mga papers, ay ang ganda naman na result nila, ang ganda ng conclusions, pero sometimes it would take 2, 3 or 4 years, for us to, like to work on a particular program and essentially our project for us to get like those good results. So hindi po siya yung wala po yung hindi po yung parang isang tira lang makukuha niyo na po agad. Okay, so we're moving on to a few more questions. Actually, Kuya, natitrigger na yung mga teachers kasi more questions are actually coming in. So, ito po. So, next question naman po. Ito, Kuya, medyo mas specific naman to. And I think you'd relate to this kasi nakita namin yung example. So from Joe Haida o Okias, so Professor Mojica, what context can we have explore in which the teacher solely rely in modular form of learning? So yun nga po, siguro kuya, modular.
So,
Yan.
pwedeng i-ask nyo kung gaano the time spent by the students in learning, in reading their modules, or in the first place, do they know that the module materials are available? And then after that, how long are they spending there? And then maybe i-relate nyo doon sa performance ng students, kung yung length of time at yung performance ng students. What else? Because sometimes, ang namin yan, yung inano namin yan, yung tinatawag namin online web learning. So what I try to do is look at their score and relate it with the overall performance of them in the class. And I saw a great correlation there, that if their score is good in the online component requirement, okay, they do better. If their score is not good, okay, most likely hindi rin maganda yung overall performance nila. So parang ganun din yung ninyo dun sa modular. How effective is it? So maybe, ano yung performance ng mga bata? Gaano katagal yung in-spend na time nila doon sa pagbasa ng module? Tapos, ano pa yung ginagawa nila? Do they look at other resources to reinforce kung ano man yung nandoon sa module? Okay, so I think that's how I'm going to look at it.
Okay. So yun, actually, ito yung ang maganda pong nakita rin natin based dun sa practice ni Professor Mojica is the fact that yung pag-survey lang po, ang dami na nila pong makukuha, no? And siguro sa context po, siguro ng modular na baka ang concern ni ma'am ay printed. So paano po ito, sir?
Yun na nga.
Pinadala namin, printed na, hindi namin nakikita. Aside, siguro po suggestion rin, aside from running a survey or conducting a survey with the students, you can get the parents involved.
Yeah.
Kasi di ba nakakapag-observe yung parents, so gaano ba katagal mag-aral tong anak ko? Ano ba yung ginagawa niya habang pinoprocess?
Pwedeng itanong kung meron bang natulong habang ginagawa yung module.
Opo. So yun po, taking full advantage of all the stakeholders po who can provide, very important or critical information, mahalaga po yun. And ito po, wala namang gastos tong survey, no? So, ito po, yan, ang ganda po nung mga nakuha natin dito sa talk ni Professor Meng. So, yun po, napakasimple lang po ng approach na ginagawa, in a way, kung paano siya sinisimulan, no? But then again, at the same time, it's a matter of getting started, no? So, again, hindi po siya mapaperfect agad sa unang attempt. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. So, Professor Mojica, this was the question from Jason Villa Esther. What if modular learning modality po ang ginagamit? Can you share any idea on how to do the science laboratory activities?
Mahaba-haba ito, but I think in one of my webinar, if you're going to look at the project community, yung binigay ko sa sa Southern Luzon State University is some example of this what we call webinar, and I think it's still available there. Okay, how you can use home based experiments. Yung nga lang Coca-Cola, you can have a lot of experiment using it. Putting egg on the Coca-Cola, tapos yung ilalagay mo siya sa pan, and then see the difference between the regular, the diet, and the zero if they have sugar. Okay, so I think it's one of the best good webinar where I put some of the experiments that you can do using the modular form.
Ayan. So
Kasi ang request na nung Southern Luzon State University, because they have to go to islands para dalhin yung modules ng mga estudyante nila.
And grabe po. Pero we really appreciate po yung mga ginagawa ng mga guro natin ngayon. Kasi, sabi nga po ni Professor Mojica earlier in the beginning of this talk, everyone was thrown into a very unfamiliar jungle. So the fact po that, we were all surviving and hopefully thriving po, after 2 years since the pandemic started, pagpatuloy nyo lang po yan. And then please find comfort in the fact that, there are individuals like Professor Mojica and groups like Filipino Science Hub na tumutulong po sa lahat ng sa abot ng aming makakaya. So kapit lang po tayo, malalagpasan din natin itong pandemic. All right. So next question naman po came from Clint Irvin Mosqueda. So regular po natin ito sa Filipino Science Hub. Hi Sir Clint. So his question says like, how do the action research practices in your workplace, siguro po sa New York, differ from what's being done or practiced in the Philippines?
Very frankly, action research is usually done here by primary school teachers, like my wife. I don't even know that I'm doing action research until the time that I was asked to talk about it and I read about it. Oh, all the while I'm doing this and I don't know.
Ayan. All right. So ito naman, ito question ko, napaka-specific nito. Siguro ang question ko is, hello po, this is from Gerald Pa. So hello po, another question. In doing action research, need pa rin po bang ipa-evaluate yung instruments na nagagamitan? Siguro po yung survey. Kailangan pa ba itong...
Yung survey, I think, and you can put what we call the number there. You can use some stat anal. I remember when we did it, I said, oh, half of them says agree, half of them said disagree. So still nonsense. Yun yung mahirap. And the NSF don't want that kind of what we call statistical analysis. Because when we propose grant proposal and we want to show them how do you evaluate? Yun yung question is evaluation. And one of the program officer told us, some proposal, some professors who propose this one, they try to put like a statistical analysis. And what's the sample size? 10? It won't work because we're trying to get a proposal for scholarship. So ang number of scholarship namin is 10 students per year. So sabi niya, hindi na applicable yung statistical analysis dito. So pumunta ka, kasi there are what we call yung types of research that is very different doon sa practice namin ni Jeff. Yung mga longitudinal research, to tell you frankly, I don't know about it. Whenever I encounter that, that's the time I look at it, and if I still don't understand it, I just throw it to the education expert, because I don't want to extend yung I know my limitations. So if I don't know anything, I ask somebody who is more expert, who have more expertise than me, and I just tell them, can you help me interpret this? What does it ask?
siguro kuya, another yung concern rin ng mga guru sa atin, kasi I think medyo mahigpit yung policy sa atin. So when designing surveys, kuya, yung ethical standpoint or consideration and privacy,
we have that
considerations. So paano nyo po ba yung ginagawa?
Well, since the identity is not going to be known, we get exemption from the IRB. Kasi ang ano doon, minsan meron yung yung ethical issues. So you cannot say what's the race. If ever you're going to say the race, you have to do like a profile. So some of the respondents are this and this, but you're not going to identify any particular person who is involved on that.
Okay, so anonymized, no? So there's anonymity in the data. So siguro that's one thing to keep in mind. Yeah.
So minsan, kino-correlate namin yung race, but that's it. Hindi namin ina-identify. Ang ano nga namin, kapag meron kaming yung parang de-identify yung tawag namin. So if we want to look at their what we call answer, we sometimes put the race profile, yung income profile, kasi may effect yan doon sa performance ng mga bata eh. Okay? Kasi minsan nakikita namin, oh, this student has to work how many hours and that's why his grade is not good. Okay? So yun yung natutunan ko when I'm trying to get a grant doon sa scholarship, because it's more education compared doon sa hard science na natututo ko. But I always ask somebody, I don't understand this, Brian Evans, because you're more in the education. Maybe you can what we call put something out of it. May IRB issues, ethical issues, but usually we are exempted because the identification, it's always anonymous.
All right. Okay. So we're down to our last question po, Kuya Meng, and this came from Maria Cristina Ablao. So I think to a certain extent you touched on this topic already. So how do you interpret the data, or what is the proper way or method of interpreting?
Well, the typical stat analysis that we have, merong correlation function yung Excel. Tinitingnan namin yung mga scores. Tapos we're trying to do like a t-test based on the score. But we only apply it if the population is really high. Kasi nga, yung sinabihan kami, what's the sense of doing statistical analysis when you have a sample size of just 10? It's, sabi no program officer, it's just BS. It's just a waste of time. So don't force yourself to do that you're going to evaluate them using this statistical analysis method. Because we understand that it cannot be happening. You're trying to say that, oh, if the students attend an enrichment program, it will improve the grade of the students. Tapos 10 lang yung yung sample size mo. It's not going to give a significant difference or.
So siguro po, Kuya Meng, a very important point that I think you're also raising po para maka-reflect din ang mga guro is yung action research, yung qualitative data could be as important as quantitative data, diba po? So correlations, siguro po, ito rin, Kuya Meng, yung parang napapansin ko rin po sa practice, siguro po na scientific research sa Philippines na dun pa lang sa, parang meron pong mga schools na nagre-require sa proposal stage pa lang na meron ng statistical design. Na parang medyo ano din po yun. Kami po, yun po, kami nila Kuya Meng, we're practicing scientists. Yun po, on a daily basis we do research. Yeah. Dun lang po kami medyo nagugulat na parang bakit sobrang daming seremonya sa simula.
The structure that the Philippines has sometimes is going to be tawag dito, it will discourage you to do
Apo, medyo masyado po siyang rigid yung structure na minsan po. Syempre, pag hindi ka sanay sa statistical design, you'll get discouraged to practice it. Pero sa totoo lang po, kung kayo po ay teacher at kayo ay nagtuturo ng research, for example, wag po nating i-enforce iyon kasi hindi naman po talaga yung ginagawa ng mga scientists sa lahat ng pagkakataon. Meron lang pong mga certain types ng research that would require that. And that's fine. Pero for yung sa action research po ay hindi po siya masyadong sobrang namang kailangang prerequisite para
yung advantage ko siguro because I don't know about action research, so I don't know, kailangan ba yan?
Yeah.
And then what do I do best is how are you going to do that?
Yeah. So siguro
because sometimes not knowing it is an advantage. Because pag nalaman mo, kailangan na gawin, parang overwhelmed ka na.
Actually po, yung Kuya Mel, yung case ng, ito po observation lang din po, yung case po ng paralysis by analysis. Yung sobrang, pinag-isipan mo na pinag-isipan, wala ka nang nagawa.
Yeah.
Or yun pong paralysis by over-design. So, naubos na yung oras mo kada design, hindi mo na nagawa ng maayos yung study.
Kasi, this is the thing that I have. What I do is just I collect data. And then when I have the data, okay, can I get something out of this data?
Yep.
So diyan pa lang papasok. So ano ko? Ano pwedeng gawin ko para i-prove ko na pwede tong data na to? That there's some relationship or correlations of this data with one factor to another one. So parang in-ignore ko yung umpisa pa lang, ang dami nang haharang sa'yo. Because sometimes I think it's much better that way. Tapos naisip ko, ganun ba yun? So, ang gagawin ko, okay, let's see, how can I tweak the data para gawin it in another way? So parang natuto ko yung parang switch. So, kung hindi pwede sa isang switch, so magpalit ka ng ibang switch. So, maybe you can use it in this perspective.
Ayan. And siguro po, yun nga, yung quality po kasi ng research natin, siguro we're speaking in generalities na rin. Kasi po, yung action research naman, yung scientific research, sa totoo lang po, ang dami, parehas lang yan. Iba-iba lang po yung context. Yun pong quality ng inyong study ay nakadepende rin sa quality ng inyong problem statement. Di ba po, Kuya Meng? Kapag hindi maayos ang inyong problem statement, hindi klaro sa inyo kung ano talaga ang inyong objective, naku, talaga pong maguguluhan kayo. At hindi, ito po, tanong doon ko sa YouTube, how do you come up with a conclusion? So ang conclusion nyo po, dapat yun po yung sagot sa inyong objective.
Yeah. It's just packaging, or what we could say, presenting it in a way. So you could say, oh, there's a problem here. So one of the objective that I have is to solve that problem. And if nakita ko yung na na-solve yung nung results ko, nung study ko yung problem, yun na yung i-conclude ko.
Yeah. Actually, kapag maayos yung problem statement nyo, madali lang kumuha ng sagot. Kasi ganun po, naturally, yung results nyo should be an answer to your...
Yeah. Ang ano kasi, ang nasanay natin, oh, we want it like this. Kapag hindi natin na-meet kung ano yung sinet natin, parang end of the story na. But the way I do it, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, and in the end, so ano yung pwedeng i-present?
Ayan.
Ano yung magandang kwento out of the data that I have? That's why sometimes it takes me a little long to come up with the story. And ang problema pa to, this is not the only reason. I have also other research that I have to do. And most of the time, since I don't have any grad students, ako lang yung gumagalaw. So I just want to say, okay, I have enough data this. So can I make a story about this? Kasi yun yung natutunan ko eh. Kapag nagsulat ka daw, parang ka lang nagkukwento. Tapos kung ano yung problema, tapos ano yung solution na binigay mo dun sa problema.
Ayan. So, ayan. So by the way po, we have already nilagay na po namin yung Google form link para po dun sa certificate. Kung hindi niyo po maklik yung link, makiki-copy and paste na lang po yan sa browser ninyo para mapunta po kayo dun sa website namin where you can actually get your e-certificate. Ayun po. All right. So at this point, we have already exhausted all of our questions. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat sa inyong pagsama sa amin. And so ayan po. So with that, we would like to thank Professor Elmer-Rico Mojica for yet another helpful webinar po na ibinigay niyo po sa ating mga guro. So yan, Kuya Meng, maraming salamat. Ito po ang panlimang pagkakataon na ginawa ninyo ito para sa Filipino Science Hub, and we hope that this is not gonna be the last. We hope to see you like in more in more events and offerings in the future. Siguro po, Kuya Meng, final message lang po of encouragement para sa ating mga guro when it comes to action research.
Anyone can do what we call action research. So all you need to do, you find a problem in your classroom, and then maybe try to put some solution or develop some plan, and then try to see if the plan is working. Okay, test it. So a simple survey can do it, or a simple scores by the student after you incorporate some practice. So let's say a simple comparison, let's say modular and online. So same material, okay, but you have to look at the background of the students taking it. So is there an effect? Is there a difference between the performance of the students? That's why in most of the question, I'm trying to convince myself that in person is much better than the online, okay? Because we're worried here by the time, especially kung tumaas yung magkaroon ako ng administrative force. Administrative cost, there will come a time that when they said, oh, you can do everything online, so they may not give us budget. So what will push them, or what will push the administration, o ano yung panlaban ko sa administration na hindi maganda yung online? So usually yan yung reason ka bakit ako nag-aano ng mga data. Okay? So any data that you have is, we could say one way or another, you can use it. Maybe not now, but if you continue practicing it, or continue getting feedbacks from the student, and you're going to act kung ano man yung response nila, okay? Maybe it will improve the thing. Kasi sabi ko nga sa inyo, the action research that I did during the pandemic is not to get a paper, but to make sure that I cater to the needs of my students, which is to teach them and for them to learn the lesson. So yun yung starting point. So yung bonus point na lang yung magka-paper kami out of it. Because when we come up oh, there's a lot of data that we can use. And then sasabihin ko na lang, oh, if you have time, you can write it. Because that's the thing yung mahirap yung pagsulat. Okay? And there's where the time, okay, tama ba yung design mo? So dyan na yung papasok. Kasi sa atin dyan, before kapag gumawa, oh, hindi mag-work, mali pa lang. So sometimes it is discouraged. But just do it for the sake that you want to improve yourself. You want to improve the way that you teach so that the students will learn. And then if you're going to look at the long run na, may epekto pala yung practice ko. So maybe I can get something, I can write something about it submitted, and who knows?
So siguro po, ayan, synthesizing from what Professor Mojica said, like for his final message was that action research could also be a form of self-assessment and self-improvement. Ayan, so ayan po, maraming salamat po, Professor Mojica. Pero before we actually all dial out from this session, baka po Kuya Meng, mag-photo off naman tayo para meron tayong ayan. So, start muna tayong dalawa muna Kuya Meng. and then we'll take photo like with everyone else. Okay, siguro Kuya Meng, bilang lang tayo. Kuya Meng, 1, 2, 3. Ayan. And then, so ito po, tanggalin ko na lang yung spotlight kasi we'll take, mag-photo op po tayo with everyone involved. Ayan. So, siguro po, dun po sa mga comfortable, magbukas ng cameras ninyo, feel free po para po makasama namin kayo dito sa ating, sa ating photo opportunity. So, we have, I think, 6 frames po. So, please bear with me. Alright, so first frame po, dun po sa mga gusto pa, bibigyan pa natin ng pagkakataon ng mga taong magbukas ng kanilang camera. Alright, okay, so we'll start with the first frame. So bilang po ako, 1, 2, 3. Ayan. Next one po. Hindi naman na nakabukas. Okay, nagbubukas na yun ang camera. Alright, next frame. 1, 2, 3. Ayan. And then third frame po, parang mahiyain na yung third frame hanggang 4th, 5th, and 6th. So siguro we'll stop right there. Ayan po. Pero muli, maraming salamat po sa inyong pagsama sa amin. Professor Mojica, yan po, good luck po sa pag-uwi sa Pilipinas. Baka po yung iba sa inyo, nandun sa mga lugar na pupuntahan niya, open niya si Kuya Meng sa meet and greet. Yan. But following COVID protocols, obviously. Ayan. So, muli, maraming salamat po. Actually, past midnight na po kay Professor Mojica. So, talaga pong ginagawa niya at nagpupuyat po siya para po makapaghatid at makapagbahagi ng kanyang kaalaman at kumbaga ng kanyang expertise sa mga Pilipinong guro at sa mga mag-aaral. So muli po, nagpapasalamat po kami sa inyong lahat sa pagsama na naman ninyo sa amin sa isang Sabado ng umaga. Na-invade na naman namin ang inyong tanghalian. And so hopefully po, next week, we have that talk about metrology and chemistry. So kita-kita po tayo next week. Kuya Meng, maraming salamat po. I will see you again sometime. So, and sa mga nasa Pilipinas po, patuloy po kayo mag-ingat and we'll see you again next week. Salamat po!